Hello and welcome to our last assembly of this year and my last assembly with you because I am moving away over the summer and there'll be a new person in my job and I hope that you'll really get on with them too. I wanted to start by saying thank you so much for letting me be part of your school assemblies for so long. I have really enjoyed it. And I thought for my last assembly I'm going to share with you my absolute favourite Bible story. I've got some pictures so I'll put those in as I tell the story. Now this story is about a man called Elijah, and he lived in a time before Jesus when God was friends with the Jews and looking after them, but Jesus hadn't yet come down. And at that time they had a terrible king, a king whose name was Ahab. Now Ahab had forgotten all about God and he had started to worship two other gods, one called Baal and one called Asherah. And they were wooden gods. Somebody had carved them out of wood and told everybody that they should worship them. So Elijah got a message from God, and God said to Elijah, "Go and tell Ahab that until he makes friends with me again and talks to me again, there's not going to be any rain or any water in the land. That means that there'll be a drought and the crops will dry up and the animals won't have anything to drink and life will be a bit tough. Better to listen to me." So Elijah went to King Ahab. I don't know if he was scared. I'd have been a bit scared going to the king with such a horrible message. And he said to the king, "King Ahab, God has a message for you. He says to you, until you start listening to him again and doing what's right, there's going to be no water on the land. There's going to be a drought." Then Elijah went to hide because he knew that the king would not be very happy with what was happening. So Elijah went all the way to the ravine called the Kerith ravine, and there was a little brook there. Every day Elijah would drink from the brook, and in the morning and in the evening some ravens would fly down to see him and bring him some meat and some bread. He stayed there until the brook started to dry up and there was no more water there. And then God said to Elijah, "I want you to go north all the way up to a place called Zarephath. And there you'll find a widow and she'll help to look after you." So Elijah set off through the dusty land all the way to the north, and he said to the widow, "Will you please give me some water?" And she said, "Yes." And she went to the well and she pulled out a big jug of water for him. And then he said to her, "Will you make me some bread?" And the woman said, "I'm sorry. All I have left is a little bit of flour and a little bit of oil. And I'm going to use them to make some bread for my son and I. And then we won't have anything and we'll have to starve to death." Elijah said to the widow, "God will look after you. So first make the bread but give it to me to eat, and then God will provide for you." What a thing to say! That was the last bit of bread that she and her son would have. But the woman trusted Elijah. So she baked the bread and she gave the bread to Elijah. And when she looked in her pot, there was still some flour there and still some oil. So she made some food for her son and her. And then she looked in the pot and there was still some flour. And there was still some oil. And for the rest of the 3 years of drought, every day there was flour and oil in the pot, and she and her son and Elijah could eat it. Well, after 3 years, God said to Elijah, "Elijah, it's time to go back to King Ahab." So Elijah set off back down south. King Ahab was really cross with Elijah because he felt that Elijah had cursed the land because for 3 years they hadn't had any rain, which meant that none of their plants were growing, none of their food was growing, and he was angry. But Elijah got to go and see the king, and he said to the king, "Now, king, let's sort this out once and for all. What we'll do is this. We'll both climb to the top of Mount Carmel, and we'll build an altar to our gods. You bring the prophets of Baal and Asherah, and they can build an altar, and I will build an altar to the God of the Jews, the God of the Bible. And then we'll get the sacrifice all ready, and we'll pray, and whoever's God sends fire down onto the altar will know that he is the real God." So King Ahab agreed, and they walked all the way back up to the top of Mount Carmel. And there were 400 prophets of Asherah, and there were 450 prophets of Baal. And together they lifted the heavy stones and built up an altar to their God. And they got a lot of wood and they prepared it all on the top of the altar. And then they started to pray. And they said, "Oh Baal, oh Asherah, send down your fire." And nothing happened. So they shouted a bit louder, "Oh Baal, oh Asherah, send down your fire." And still nothing happened. Elijah started to tease them. He said, "Maybe they're on holiday. Maybe they're just a bit deaf. Maybe they're on the toilet. Just keep praying." And they kept praying. And you know what they started to do? They were dancing around. They started dancing and jumping to get the attention. Nothing happened. They even started cutting their arms so that they were bleeding, thinking that that would get the attention of the gods. But nothing worked. Finally, it got to about 9 o'clock at night. The day was going, and Elijah said, "Right, now it's my turn." And he did something a bit funny. He dug a moat. It's a little bit like a ditch all the way around his altar. And he said to the king's servants, "Go and get me 12 big jars of water and pour it all over my altar." And they poured the water all over his altar, and it soaked the wood and it soaked through the stones and it filled the moat. And then Elijah knelt next to his altar and he just said, "God, show them who's God." And fire came down from heaven and it burnt up all the wood, it burnt the stones, and it dried up all of the water from around the altar. When he saw that, King Ahab said, "We need to stop worshipping Baal and Asherah, and we need to worship this God, because he truly is God." And that's what they did from that time on. And later that day, or that night, the rain came down and there was rain again across the land of Israel. Now there's lots of reasons that I like that story. It feels a bit funny, doesn't it, this big competition between the different gods? And I wonder if you think that that's fair, really. The difference between the gods is that the gods of Baal and Asherah, the people who worshipped them used to do really horrible things. They used to kill babies and bury them underneath their houses because they thought that would help the house to be stronger. What a weird and horrible thing to do. They did a lot of things where they would cut people and get their blood to run out. And I think God was a bit upset when he saw that, because he really loved the people. And no matter what he said, the king wasn't going to listen. So he knew he needed to do something really drastic to get their attention. It made me think, I don't want anybody to have to do anything drastic to get my attention if I'm doing anything wrong. That's why assemblies are sometimes really helpful. It gives us a chance just to stop and think about how we spend our time. I wonder if there's anything in your life that maybe you've been doing for a long time and it needs to change. Maybe you get embarrassed when you think you might be in trouble, so you tell a lie to get out of trouble. Maybe you get a bit grumpy when you're tired after school, and sometimes that grumpiness means that you're not very nice to your brothers or your sisters. Maybe sometimes you're a bit cross with your mum or dad and don't help them when they ask for it. It's good to try and think about these things and to change if we can, before we get into lots of trouble. The other thing I like about this story is for a long time Elijah was by himself in the cave, but I think God knew that Elijah needed friends around him to help him, however strong and incredible he was as a prophet. So he sent him to go and stay with the widow. It's nice, isn't it, when we've got friends to help us? She was a very, very good friend to Elijah because she gave him that bread even though she had nothing left then for herself and her son. I wonder what I could do to be a really good friend. I wonder if I could give up some of my time to do something that maybe I don't always want to do, but my friends really enjoy doing, so that they can have a good time too. I wonder if there's a way I could help them with their schoolwork or to learn something. Or maybe I can just keep them company when they really need it, even if sometimes I'm a bit tired. I also really like that story because of the bonfire. We're about to have our summer holidays and I don't know what you're going to do. Some of you might go and have a bonfire on the beach one night. If you do, try and remember that good things are what's really important in life. Those are the things to strive for and to work for. Kindness, looking after other people, being generous. It's a bit like being a light in the darkness. When everybody around you maybe isn't behaving or people aren't being nice to others, let's stand out like Elijah stood out. Even though there were so many other prophets from Baal and Asherah, there were 850 of them in total, Elijah stayed strong because he knew what was right. So let's try and be strong ourselves and do what is right. It's been really, really nice being with you again, and I couldn't choose a final song, so I wondered, would you be up for doing 2 songs today? I thought we could do the Actions to Tidal Wave because I think we might be spending some time on the beach this summer, and then we could finish with our favourite song, All Through History. Cool. Well, thank you very much, and I'd want to wish you all the best for those in Year 6 going up to high school and for everybody else going up a year and facing new challenges. I hope your time at school is really wonderful and you really get to enjoy it and get a lot out of it. Bye!
You painted colours in the sky, made the clouds a tower high. We worship you. You scatter stars with holy hands, dusted rock with golden sands. We worship you. It's a beautiful world out there, simply awesome beyond compare. It's a beautiful world out there, and it's made by you. We bow down, humbled by the world you made, King of love and King of grace. Our voices in wonder and louder than thunder roar. You completely take our breath away. Our simple prayer is this each day. We long for your love, Lord, to hit like a tidal wave, tidal wave, tidal wave, like a tidal wave. You made the mighty oceans roar, stretch them out from shore to shore. We worship you. You prayed that life cascaded through, dance the song of joy to you. We worship you. It's a beautiful world out there, simply awesome beyond compare. It's a beautiful world out there, and it's made by you. We bow down, humbled by the world humbled by the world you made, King of love, King of grace. Our voices in wonder and louder than thunder roar. You completely take our breath away. Our simple prayer is this each day. We long for your love, Lord, to hit like a tide. We bow down, humbled by the world you made, King of love, King of grace. Our voices in wonder and louder than thunder roar. You completely take our breath away. Our simple prayers this each day. We long for your love, Lord, to hit like a tidal wave, tidal wave, tidal wave, like a tidal wave, tidal wave.
Noah built the most enormous boat that kept the birds and animals afloat. The Lord was good, the Lord was strong, and Noah lived his life for him. Moses led his people through the sea, taking them away from slavery. The Lord was good, the Lord was strong, and Moses lived his life for him. Oh, thank you, that all through history you were faithful. Thank you, oh, thank you, that you are just the same when it comes to me. When it comes to me. David fought Goliath and he won. A humble shepherd boy became a king. The Lord was good, the Lord was strong, and David lived his life for him. Daniel was inside a lion's den. God brought him to safety once again. The Lord was good, the Lord was strong, and Daniel lived his life for him. Oh, thank you, that all through history you were faithful. Thank you, that you are just the same when it comes to me. When it comes to me. Jesus died to take away our sin, so we could get to know our God again. The Lord is good, the Lord is strong, and we will live our lives for him.